Welcome to Simplify with Mr. Pi. Today we are doing Lesson 6 of Module 3 of Eureka Math Grade 7. Today's question is, how do I rewrite an expression that has a mixed fraction? So again, this is an opening exercise, so I want you to try these 5 problems, and then we're going to go over them real quick. So give yourself about 2 or 3 minutes and try to do these problems real quick. So let's do number 1. Terry weighs 40 kilograms. Janice weighs 2 3/4 kilograms less than Terry. What is their combined weight? So we are looking for their combined weight. So we're Terry plus Janice. So Terry weighs 40. Let me do that better. Terry weighs 40, and Janice weighs 40 minus 2 3/4. The best way to answer is to first separate our mixed fractions. So 40 plus 40 minus 2 minus 3/4. We just separated. Minus 2 3/4 is the same as saying minus 2 minus 3/4. So 40 plus 40 equals 80 minus 2 minus 3/4. 80 minus 2 equals 78 minus 3/4. And that would now, 78 minus 3/4 is 77 1/4. So their combined weight is 77 1/4 pounds. So this next problem, 2 2/3 minus 1 1/2 minus 4/5. First, let's make them a mixed fraction. So that's 2 times 3 plus 2 equals 8 minus 3 over 2 minus 5 over 4. Now let's make them all the same denominator so we can then subtract them. Common denominator, I like to get the biggest number and go up from there. 5 doesn't work, 10 doesn't work, 15 doesn't work because that's a 2, 20 doesn't work because 3 doesn't go into it, 25 doesn't work, neither of them go into 25, 30 works. So that turns into 80 over 30. That turns into 45 over 30. And that turns into 24 over 30. So I know my answer is going to be something over 30. 80 minus 45 minus 24 equals 11. 1/5 plus -4. So I'm going to start at 1/5 on the number line, and I'm going to move back 4 spaces so I almost make it all the way to -4, is -3 4/5. And this one I'm just multiplying the two. 4 over 1 times 3 over 5 equals 12 over 5, which I can simplify into 2 2/5. Mr. Jackson bought 1/3 pound of beef, and he cooked 3/4 of it for lunch. How much does he have left? So here's his beef, and it's going to cut it into 3/4. He cooked 3/4 of it, and he has left 1/4. So if I'm going to figure out how much he cooked, I'm going to multiply it by 3/4, and that equals cooked. But if I have 1/4 remaining, so I'm going to multiply it by 1/4 to see how much is left. So 1 times 5 plus 3 equals 8/5. 1 3/5 is the same as saying 8/5 times 1 over 4 equals 8 over 20, which can simplify to 4 over 10, which can simplify to 2 fifths. So he has 2/5 pounds left. Very good. Let's move on to example 1. It says to rewrite the expression in standard form by collecting like terms. So remember, like terms, all of these, each one of these numbers has the variable connected to it, so we need to combine all those. Standard form means only one of each type of number.
Bus 190, bus number 190.
Bus 190. Y'all can leave now. Next is we're going to put it in standard form by collecting like terms. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make the denominators the same. So let's get the biggest number. 9 does not work because 4 doesn't go in there. 18 does not work because 4 doesn't go in there again. 27 does not work. Oh, but 36 works, so I'm going to write it over 36. So I'm going to multiply by 12 to get 24 over 36 in. And then my 3/4 turns into 27 over 36 in. My 1/6 turns into 6 over 36 in. And my 2 2/9 turns into 2 8/36 in. I had a copy error right there. That is not plus. That is minus. That's a minus sign right there. So I had a little copy error right there. So I know my answer is going to be something over 36. 24 minus 27 is -3 over 36 in. And then I'm going to add 6. So my -3 becomes +3. And then I'm going to add that. So all 3 of those equals that. And then I'm going to add 2 and 2/38 in. Oops, that's again a copy error. That's an 8. That's an 8. And 8 plus 3 equals 11. So 2 and 11/36 in is my answer. So exercise 1 is our first stop and check. They are just like this question before, just like example 1. I want you to try these two, pause the video, raise a hand, and I will check it and you can move on to the next question. Example number 2, at a store, a shirt was marked down by $10, a pair of pants was doubled in price. Following these changes, every item in the store was cut in half. So the shirt was down by 10, pants doubled, and then everything was cut in half. So they're going to ask us to write 2 different expressions. So S stands for the shirt and P stands for the pants. So let's talk about that. So my shirt is marked down by $10, and following the changes, and then it's cut in half. So then, that's why I put those parentheses around it, it's cut in half. So this says shirt minus $10, then you cut it in half. The other way we can write it is we can do our distribution. 1/2 times S equals 1/2 S. 1/2 times 10 equals 5. So that's saying that I take half the price of the shirt and then I take $5 more off. For the pants, I can write it as pants doubled in price. So 2P, that's price of the pants times another price of the pants. I'm doubling it in half. But then I'm cutting it in half. So I'm going to put it in parentheses so I know there's a second step. I cut it in half. And then the second way we can write that is do our distribution. What is 1/2 times 2? And I am left with just P. Okay, next it tells us to write two different expressions that represent the total cost of the item if tax was 10% of the original price. So remember, tax is added on after. So is added on to the price. And this one is a little bit different. It's on to the original price. So let's first take the first equation, 1/2 s minus 10, and then let's add on 1/10 of the s. So we're going to get the sales price, take $10, and then cut it in half, and then add 1/10 more of that original price. The other thing that we can do would be 1/2 s minus 5 plus 1/10 s. But we are not in the simplest form. We have 1s, 2 s's there, so we need to combine those two. 5/10 s, which is the same as that, plus 1/10 s minus 5. I rearranged them, and I made them the common denominator. So that would be 6/10, and 6/10 can simplify to 3/5s minus 5. Now to do it with the pants, 1/2 2p plus 1/10 of the pair of pants, because we're adding on that tenth again. Or we have p plus 1/10 p, which then can be rewritten as 1 and 1/10 p. Very good. Let's move on to the next one. Write this expression in standard form by collecting like terms. So we're going to collect those like terms again. So the first thing that we need to do is look at this. We have some different things, so we're going to need to get the common denominator before, and then we have some x's, and then we have some regular numbers. So we need to put the regular numbers together, and then the x is then going to stay the same, but then we also need to distribute that over as well. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of those plus signs, or get rid of the minus signs. So 5 1/3 plus negative 3 1/3, which we can rewrite as negative 10/3 times half x minus 1/4. So let's distribute that out. Let's do my distribution, and I am left with, I'm going to go ahead and make that an improper fraction, so that would be 16/3 plus, now 10/3 times a half equals 5/3 x. So I have negative 5/3 x minus, or plus 5/6, because negative times a negative equals a positive, and 10/3 times a quarter equals 5/6. So I can combine these two to give me 37/6 is my common denominator would be 6, and then 32 plus 5 equals 37, plus 5/3x. So I want you to try A and B. They're just like this question, from before. I want you to try, see if you can get this answer. Then pause the video, raise your hand, and I will check you. Example 4, model how to write the expression in standard form using the rules of rational numbers. So I already rewrote it here, and we're going to do this 2 different ways. So let me make this a little bit bigger. So first, let me talk about one thing before we get going. This number right here, x over 20, it can be written a couple different ways. I can rewrite x over 20. I can rewrite that as 1x over 20, or I can also rewrite that as 1 over 20 times x. Those 3 are all equivalent. So let's move into this one right here. So the first way I can write this is I'm going to make the common denominator. My common denominator, 20, 5, 2, and 10, will be 20. So x over 20 plus 4 times 2x over 20, because to get that 5 to a 20, I had to multiply it by 2. To get this next number to a 20, I need to multiply by 10. And then to get that next number, I got to multiply by 2. So now my common denominator is 20, and I can rewrite it as 1. X plus 8x plus 10x plus 10 plus 6x minus 2. So now I can combine my like terms. 1 plus 8x equals 9x, 19x, 25x, 25x minus 8, because 10 minus 2 is 8, over 20. And 25 over x can be simplified to 5 over 4x, and 8 over 20 can be simplified to 2 over 5, which I got my equation right there. Let's move on to this one. So remember, I can rewrite x over 20 as 1 over 20x. And so I'm going to put all my, and then I can add 2 over 5x, which then I can add 1 over 2x. Then I'm going to add 1/2. That's that one right there. And that 1 over 2 would be that one right there. Then I'm going to add 3 over 10x, and then I'm going to subtract 1 over 10. Now I'm going to rewrite it and put my like terms together, put my x's together. So 1 over 20 plus 2 over 5 plus 1 over 2 plus 3 over 10, and all those are an x, plus 1/2 minus 1/10. So I'm going to put all these together with my common denominator as 20. 1 over 20 plus 8 over 20 plus 10 over 20 plus 6 over 20, which equals 25 over 20, which equals 5 over 4x, plus, that would be 5 over 10 minus 1 over 10, which equals 4 over 10, which equals 2/5. And they are equal. Now it tells you to evaluate the 2 original expressions when x equals 20. So first we need to rewrite the 2 equations. X over 20 plus 2x over 5 plus x plus 1 over 2 plus 3x minus 1 over 10. So that was just the original expression that we worked with. And then the other one would be the answer that we simplified it to, 4 over 5x plus 2/5. And then we are going to add in a 20 to where all the x's are. So I'm going to get 20 over 20, 2 times 20 over 5 plus 20 plus 1 over 2, and then 3 times 20 minus 1 over 10. So that equals 1, that equals 8, that equals 21 over 2, and that equals 59 over 10. So those two equal 9. Those two equal 164 over 10. And I'm going to put those two, so which also equals 16 and 4/10. So I'm going to put those two together and get 25 and 4/10. And 4/10 can be simplified to 2/5. So let's try it on this end. 5 over 4 times 20 plus 2/5. So 5 over 4 times 20 over 1 equals 100 over 4, which equals 25 plus 2/5. We are equal, so we did a good job. So let's move on to exercise 4. I want you to write these in standard form. So again, put the h's together. Just like this question right here, you can put your like terms together like we did here, or you can find a common denominator and then work that way. So I want you to try exercise 4, pause the video, raise your hand, I will check on it, and then we'll move on. Next is example 5. I just want you to copy down the answer on this and see the 4 different ways that we can solve this answer. Just try to see the process. Did they make a common denominator? Did they put the like terms together first? What did they do? So you're going to need to pause the video on this one and copy this one down. And then last would be exercise 5. We're going to need to write this one in standard form. And remember, only one of each one. So we're going to need one x and one whole number together. So first, what is my common denominator? 10 doesn't work, but 20 does. So I'm going to need to make it 20 minus something over 20. So to get my 4 to 20, I'm going to have to multiply by 5. 2x minus 11. And then to get my 10 to a 20, I'm going to have to multiply by 2. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we need to, let's multiply these two together to get 6. So those two together to become 6. Let me rewrite the equation. 5, 2x minus 11 over 20 minus 6, x minus 2 over 20. So now that we're over 20, I'm going to move it up here because I ran out of space. I can make it under one denominator of 20. And then I can do my multiplication. I can do that. So 5 times 2 equals 10x. 5 times 11 is 55, so I'm going to subtract 55. And then minus, I'm going to keep my minus sign. 6 times x equals 6x. And 6 times 2 equals 12. Plus 12, because I'm doing a negative times a negative to get positive 12. Now I can combine my like terms. 10 minus 6 equals 4x. And negative 55 plus 12 equals negative 43. So 4x over 20 equals 1/5 x minus 43 over 20 is 2 and 3 over 20, which is my answer right there. Very good. Let's move on to the problem set. For the problem set, I want you to do 3 of these, 3 of these, and 6 of these. Thank you for listening. Please raise your hand for the final check of the problem set, and you will be done for today.